the American original. For over the last 10 years, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Josh Segala from the Standard.io,
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening.
Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor,
Hey, you, what's new?
Ben Ark from LN Bits,
Hello, glad to be back.
and I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one. Issue one, Bitcoin could hit $69,000 by mid 2024 as it enters acceleration phase. Analyst says Bitcoin prices have doubled this year amid a spot ETF push by prominent traditional finance firms. They've even got the graphic of the bull. Josh Shigala, what do you think about the potential Bitcoin bull market?
Well, but for us that are fundamentally in Bitcoin because of the fundamentals, these numbers that these articles pull out of their buttholes, it just means nothing. You know, all it means is, yeah, I absolutely will reach 69K at some stage. And I love how they put the little word "could" in there. Yeah, it says it's just a no news article. It's like, hey, we got a slow week. Throw us out a number, and we'll write an article how Bitcoin could reach that this time, and we'll put a picture of a bull. Everyone's bought their Bitcoin, right? In the office, everyone's bought it. Okay, release the article. That's kind of how I feel about that. But yeah. I mean, it definitely could. It definitely could. The other thing I don't like is putting all the eggs into one explanation. Like, well, there's an ETF, BlackRock. No. Again, I don't want BlackRock to be the reason why Bitcoin goes up. It doesn't really matter what I want or not. But fundamentally, Bitcoin will go up because the market sees value in all of its utility and its capability of holding value and its scarcity. So yeah. And mining's up, like all of it's pointing in the right direction. So I do think the article's right. I just don't like these sort of ridiculous pull numbers out of your ass sort of articles with pictures of bulls and bears.
There was a great quote on Twitter, Josh, where a guy was on CNBC and he said he didn't like Bitcoin, he didn't understand it, but that he was going to buy more. And I think we're going to run into a lot more of that this season as things come around and these traditional guys say, well, it made 5% last week, it made 7% this week. Like, I don't know what's going on. I don't care what the happening is. I don't, I'm sure they know about ETFs and all that, but I think they'll buy because it's the new shiny object. Dan Eve, what do you think about the bull and the bear markets?
Yeah, I think you're totally right. People are going to get swept in. The FOMO is gonna hit. So rather than people that slowly kind of get educated in a bear run, and it will get all the retail investors jumping in as well as these institutions now, especially with the rumors of another potential ETF, which I think we'll cover later. But what's I think the most interesting thing about this whole thing is that the CME topped Binance futures volumes, which is pretty big, right? Because Binance is the biggest exchange in the world in terms of the raw crypto. And so for an external non-crypto company to start beating its volumes, that's pretty big. That's pretty bullish, one might say. So we're gonna, that's the sort of thing that gets the headlines in, that actually gets the general investors, retail investors, institutions all on board, thinking, hey, we just jump on this train, like VCs who just jump on a freight train, as they did with FTX. Sequoia just straight in there, right? So we're going to see a lot more of that, and especially as the hype around the halvening picks up. And it's one of those things that those in the know, and would be able to explain the halvening. But you'll hear like random people are going, "Have you heard?" Like the taxi driver, that'll be the real event, right? Have you heard about the halvening coming up? So I'm looking forward to hearing about my Uber driver telling me about the halvening soon.
I like it's like a religious holiday. They're not sure if it's going to happen. They're not sure what day it is. It's like some weird religion like Halloween, but it moves around, and we're all waiting for the great pumpkin. Remember that when the bull is coming, that means that the horn is going up, pointing upward. When the bear is coming, the bear is swiping downward. And these are the fancy descriptors that we use for our financial markets to keep it confusing. Ben Ark, what do you think about the bull and the bear of Bitcoin?
I mean, I think that, if you look at historical halvenings and what the price has done in the past, this reminds me of that when we sort of cruised at 3K during those COVID years, and then we had the last halvening, and then we pumped up. And I think 200K is the target, really, not 69K. I think it's like it's a very conservative prediction. But yeah, like Josh said, as fundamental types, fun and mental Bitcoin, it is going to go up to, dizzy heights because it's just supply and demand. And it doesn't really matter what happens with an ETF. Like, the very fact that the amount of supply being put into the system gets restricted pushes the price up. And yeah, I think it's next year, honestly. I think it's 200K. Like, we'll get there in a blink. And now's the time to look around the room and then look all these hardcore mofos who are like, have been here for this period where Bitcoin isn't cool. And yeah, we'll have like all this, like as we have with other pumps as well, we'll have all these new people coming in. And it really is a time to sort of see who's around now and see who's working and see who's building things. And they're the Bitcoiners you want to stick with during those dizzying heights when we hit 200K, which will happen next year.
It's a great reminder to push the thumbs up button on today's show. We get about 40 likes a show, so you could be one of them. And it is interesting. They have picked a random number. They've picked 69,420 for the meme value. We kind of have to get over that. And then they'll say, oh, it's a new Bitcoin bull run. And, oh, if you had bought Bitcoin at this price on this day, oh, what you would have done. And the articles all flip over and suddenly we're intelligent again. Josh Shigali, you're competing against the Bitcoin predictor ball, the source of all truth and knowledge in this universe. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher or lower this time next week? It was obviously a little higher recently.
Yeah, I think it could reach 69,420. I just love that number, 69,420. How can you get past that? Yeah, up.
69,420. It's like the Bodie McBoat face of internet numbers.
Yeah, it really is, man. It's taking the piss.
Dan Eve, predicty face. Will the price be higher or lower?
Still higher, I think. I think we've got a way to go. All this ETF hype's getting everyone's lips wet.
Ben Ark, ETF hype, more articles about articles about articles about articles.
It's funny because, like, obviously the ETF thing will pull a lot of liquidity into Bitcoin, but it's something I'm not looking forward to because currently, like, all these investment firms and funds who want to invest in Bitcoin, the best way they can do it without actually owning Bitcoin is investing in Bitcoin companies. So as soon as we get an ETF, all that will stop. So, which will be a shame. But yeah, no, higher. Let's go higher.
Higher. Everyone likes higher. And now the Bitcoin predictor ball, beware, shaking it could cause bubbles. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher next week? Concentrate and ask again. Well, the ball has not been giving a lot of predictions lately. You really got to subscribe to get the pro version of Bitcoin predictor ball. I'm not sure.
I think it's sad that you went away traveling. It's like, it's just being like, every time you ask it a question now, because it thinks you're going to go away.
What do you care? You just
unhappy
leave me.
predictor ball, not brought with me in my suitcase. A strange liquid ball. Why is that ball of liquid in your suitcase, sir? Don't know. Moving on to issue 2. El Salvador. Has naive Bukele's Bitcoin gamble paid off? Just as when the prices were down, now that the prices were up, everyone's a fan of El Salvador. And the same thing for Michael Saylor, who's made a $1.2 billion profit off of his Bitcoin hodl. As we said when they were down, they would be heroes if they held, and it went back up. It went back up at least enough to get them to their point. Does this change anything about their actions or who they are? or what we would have done if we had had billions of dollars to buy Bitcoin back in the day. Dan, Eve, what about El Salvador and MicroStrategy?
Well, I mean, they're down, like they're down overall, right? There's all the articles like to point that out, in terms of the value that they've invested, but it seems to have brought a lot of tourism to the country, a lot of other economy stimulation, from either just the news of them adopting Bitcoin, but also the investment that's gone into the country in general. Whether that's because also they kind of cleaned up a bit of the crime by the sounds of it, albeit in a bit of a precarious sort of way, by the sounds of it. Allegedly, is that right? But ultimately, there is, they are the first country to have Bitcoin as their standard, and that's going to have, there's going to be ups and downs. We'll hear about all the times when Bitcoin isn't doing so well, and there'll be the IMF trying to laugh at them and all this, but they paid off their loan, right? So that's one major win. The fact is that it's very early days still. We do have the halvening around the corner. So as we kind of know as Bitcoiners, there generally follows a bit of a pump. Yes, they may have kind of kicked everything off at slightly the wrong time. Imagine if they'd have done it just about a year later when Bitcoin was sort of 15,000. They would be really, really laughing now, but they had to do it at some point, and there's no time like the present. So there's obviously the volatility is always going to get people, right, until Bitcoin becomes a bit less volatile, when the world starts to adopt it more and more. The volatility will tend to affect people a bit more when buying their dailies, but only when compared against the dollar. If everyone's transacting in Bitcoin, then the price of the dollar doesn't matter, because your price of Bitcoin is this, one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. There's also, I like the fact that they're doing compulsory Bitcoin education in schools, which is definitely a step forward. Like I still absolutely have no idea why in schools we didn't learn about compound interest or mortgages or loans and predatory loan practices and things like that. If I think the education system really needs to be revamped so that people, I mean, maybe it was after I still went to school, because it probably was a few years ago now. But it really makes a difference with knowing about something before you go into it, knowing about a loan before you actually, and really knowing about it. And that's something that I really respect, the fact that they're teaching it in schools and teaching Bitcoin in schools. The odd comment about the Monopoly at the casino, like playing Monopoly at the casino. I didn't know you could play Monopoly at the casino. I thought they're two separate things altogether. But I think next time I go to a casino, I'm going to play Monopoly. That's for sure. It sounds fun.
I'm not sure what casino you can play Monopoly at, but it sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
Yes, it's been interesting to see them throw their big money in the company and the country, like you said, Dan. But again, we don't get to pick our Bitcoin friends, and it's interesting to see what the big players could do when they have the cash. Ben, Ark, what do you think about El Salvador and MicroStrategy?
I mean, fair play. They've stuck through this bear market. So there was part of me which thought that maybe they were just riding on that bandwagon, or Kelly was, just to, gather a few extra Twitter followers, and then they would bail when the Bitcoin price tanked, which he did. He tanked the price, by the way, with his silly Bitcoin City announcement in a volcano using miners, which was just megalomaniac, and everyone was like, "Oh, this guy's nuts." Okay. And then that's literally when the price tanked down from the last high. But it was the ultimate play, because it's such a guppy small economy. Like, even with Bitcoin price going down, it pulled in loads of businesses. I know loads of businesses who set up in El Salvador, and a bunch of like very rich Bitcoiners moved there as well. So someone like Max Kaiser moved there, and they bring a lot of value into the country. So even though Bitcoin price went down, the actual economic GDP went up, which is good. And it's the things like, so there was in Lugano, there was Chorito coffee, and they were selling bags of coffee. And when they sold a bag of coffee, they were using LM Bits, they're using the LM Bits point of sale, and then they were using the split payments extension to split payments to the coffee producers who were unbanked. And in the supply chain of coffee production, so Alpha Salvador, one of their main exports is coffee, because the people who grow the coffee, they don't have bank accounts. And then there's a whole bunch of hops. It means that they just get ripped off. So as it was with this company selling the coffee in Lugano, the coffee producers were being paid at point of sale because we've got this internet money now. So when someone buys that bag of coffee, then that coffee producer in El Salvador can actually get the money. And because they have Bitcoin as a currency, they can then use that locally to pay for goods and services. And they were getting the value they get is 5 times the value they would get if the coffee is traded on the open market. So I think that's really exciting. Like seeing it's like real world use case of Bitcoin being used for remittances and then for like splitting payments and money streaming, and it's very powerful. Like banking all these people who haven't got bank accounts, so they don't get ripped off in supply chains. So that's been cool, like to see real world use case and Bitcoin actually being used for some good. And also, props to them for not just bailing during the bear market. And I think that they're going to do very well when Bitcoin hits 200K, having stuck with us. It's just about increasing more adoption, which will happen, I suppose, as the price goes up. So no, I'm pretty positive about the whole El Salvador thing. He's our dictator, and we love him.
He's our dictator. Josh Shigala, what about Bukele and Michael Saylor? Once they were unsuccessful, now they're just about breaking even.
Well, I love how these articles, they say things like, they call it a gamble, but what in life is not a gamble? When, everything pretty much is a gamble. Well, but it's the language that's kind of used to put a negative spin on his decision, when really it was, I think probably one of the best decisions. It'll show to be one of the best decisions any leader of the world could have made, for their people, because their people will actually understand the fundamentals of this technology rather than just hearing it and seeing a ticker go past in the bull market on CNN, rushing in and getting wrecked. These people, because they're being educated slowly and properly on the fundamentals, might be able to actually understand that, well, it's down at the moment. I'll cross average buy in some, or whatever. And as we build out technologies, as we build out things like what we're building at the Standard, and maybe stuff like that on Bitcoin as well, you'll be able to see solutions to some of the volatile issues. And there's other people working on volatility within the Bitcoin space as well, by having automatic shorts and hedging capabilities within the technology. So there's all sorts of stuff happening, and when the market takes off properly, these people will be held up on a pedestal, told that they were absolute geniuses. But this sort of language, like, ooh, it was the gamble paid off. It wasn't a gamble. It was a well thought out decision to get away from the World Bank, from these sorts of predatory monetary and countries that basically like China, that go in and flood your market with debt to then ask for massive amounts of remittances, or ask for ports and critical infrastructure. So I think it's a really good choice that he made. I always have. But I do feel, like Ben said, he's our dictator. I don't want to as well say that everybody should love and praise this guy. I mean, he's another leader. I think it was a good decision of his, but he's just another person in my mind. Obviously he's leading a country, but yeah, I think this is what we got to watch out for, is these sorts of loaded words like gamble. They're there to manipulate you.
Exit question. If they both succeed, who will history remember more? The rich man or the rich dictator who built a city on top of a volcano? Dan Eve.
Rich dictator all the way. Yeah, yeah. Especially with a ninja volcano mining setup, securing the Bitcoin network, turn the country around. I think he'll be remembered a bit more. Obviously, Saylor's they'll still be both be remembered. But I think Josh made a really good point. Like the fact that you can call it a gamble, I think is just absurd. And I agree that everything is a gamble, right? Bezos starting up Amazon was a gamble. Google as a startup was every single thing where someone put money in order to invest in their time and idea was a gamble. And it's you can't call it a gamble. It's just making logical decisions based on the opportunity, which I suppose is gambling, but that's just another way of saying it's you know what I mean.
I think the obvious question here is great dictator or greatest dictator? Ben, who will history remember more, the rich man or the rich dictator?
I mean, thankfully they scrapped the volcano Bitcoin City idea, but it wasn't just Bitcoin as well. He opened up to the surfers as well with the Surf City, so you just saw an opportunity, and it wasn't a gamble. He would win either way. He would pull in companies, and or the Bitcoin price would go up eventually, and their Bitcoin holdings would go up as well. So no, it wasn't a gamble. It was just a good decision. And we do need to be careful with these dictators. The Milton Friedman backed the Chicago Boys backed a dictator once upon a time, and that didn't turn out too well. And we don't want to be on the wrong side of history. But hopefully, this Bukele guy, once he's fixed the country, will hand it back over to democracy. And but let's hope. Let's cross our fingers. But it was a good play, and it's paying off.
That definitely happens every single time. We've got a report from the Beach Boys that if we go to Surf City, it's 2-1, 2-1, 2 girls for every guy. Josh Agala, who will history remember more, the rich dictator or the rich man? And again, he'll be very, very rich.
Yeah, I think the dictator. I think the dictator. It'll be the first country to accept Bitcoin. I think it's and it's happened every time dictators hand over the country back to democracy without any violence. So it tends to be the thing that. So well, let's see. I'm not opposed to benevolent dictators. I'm also not opposed to. I'm opposed to it, I should say, but I'm not. There's some what I'm trying to say here is that there's some democracies that are worse than benevolent dictators because there's an illusion of democracy when really it's a dictatorship because you get to vote for fake two-party systems. So that's what I meant by that comment. So when you cut this clip and just decide to cut that first bit and leave the rest context out,
when the AI does that to you, yes. But the Hall of Benevolent Dictators is still looking for our first member. We're still looking. We're out there. We've had many applications, but it always turns bad in the end. So let's move on. Go ahead, Josh.
Just quickly before we move on, that sometimes you need that crazy single party to make a very, very hard decision like that, though. Sometimes it just takes that, and this is definitely the case with some companies. It's like you need a whole new infrastructure. You need that single CEO that's a nut bag to then say, I'm going to take this company in this direction. Everyone goes, what? This is we would never vote for this, but they do, and it turns out well.
I remember she said, let them eat cake. And he said, off with their heads. One man made the great decision. Moving on, check out worldcryptonetwork.com where we've got 3,254 videos. That's a lot. We're also keeping track of the sidebar where many appearances are happening. Dan Eve is chasing Tone Vase. Joshua Shigala and Ben Arkt have knocked Jimmy Song off the board for total number of appearances on World Crypto Network shows. You can always just click on the person's name and then see a selection of shows that they've been in. All for free at worldcryptonetwork.com. Thanks to DJ Booth. Issue 3. Ethereum price surges as BlackRock takes steps to offer Ethereum ETF. As predicted on this show, right here from my mouth, Bitcoin does all the work, grounds out all the land, all the Winklevi, all the ETFs we talk about for years and years and years on this show. Ethereum just says, hey, you're having an ETF? Me too. Ben Ark, Ethereum's having an ETF because Bitcoin's having an ETF. They're also going to wear our hand-me-down clothing. What do you think about this incredible development that caused the price of Ethereum to go up 10%, then drop down about 5%?
Yeah, as I said before, like more and more, I'm kind of not looking forward to these ETFs because all these funds will stop investing in Bitcoin companies and I suppose Ethereum companies as well. But I mean, like Ethereum's been running long enough now. I mean, it's not something I care about at all. I don't do any work on, but you know, it's been running long enough now that you know it's a legitimate project. You know, it's doing its thing. It's got lots of users, and why not? Why can't they have an ETF? Just like Bitcoin, they can aspire to that as well. But yeah, no, it's something we should. I've started to not look forward to. Like, yeah, it will push the price up, but the amount of investment into Bitcoin companies will slow down because of it. So, and that'll happen, I'm sure, with the Ethereum stuff too. So, or maybe not. Maybe the renewed price push will then push more liquidity just into VC funds as well. So, yeah, it is what it is.
There you go, Ben. I was going to quote the old man at the end of Network for you, and then the profits from the ETFs will go back into the Bitcoin companies, connecting together standards and practices the way it should be. Josh Shigala, Ethereum's getting an ETF too, just like Bitcoin, just like Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, we said it like you said. It's only a matter of time till Dogecoin gets its own ETF. Now, the thing is that it does. I don't know, Ben, if you're right that it'll stop investment. I think that once the ETF is there, there might be a section of time, a little slice of time where that will happen, but eventually Bitcoin will reach its a lot higher mark, and the gains are not as high as if you invested in a smaller cap company that could be profitable. And so yeah, it could happen for a little bit, but yeah, the Ethereum ETF. What's interesting about Ethereum is that they've recently chose to move to proof of stake, and it's still an untested technology. I would say it's a lot riskier to have an ETF on Ethereum purely because of the proof of stake stuff hasn't had 10 years yet. Saying on Ethereum, we have had proof of stake for 10 years, but we haven't had one project consistently not be not anything happen to it, and it's looked pretty good so far. And I might add I like to always have conflicts in my own arguments, is that there is so much money that is entrusted on the Ethereum network already. So I do feel that that people feel confident about the technology. It's not like some pump and dump where something has some crazy market cap and then doesn't have it the next day. Like Ethereum has had now years of toil and experiments and upgrades and everything else. So we'll see. It's definitely a different beast than Bitcoin. Bitcoin is very, very steady, strong, doesn't change much. The technology is well understood. I don't think we can say the same for Ethereum base layer just yet. I don't think that, I don't think it's out of the picture. It will happen where people build that. The time builds that trust. But yeah, let's see. I'm very, very excited.
Dan, Eve, what do you think? Ethereum ETF, but problems from proof of stake?
Well, as any, not that I'm defending proof of stake, but has any actual proof of stake coin been hacked yet? There's many examples of proof of work where the hash.
I think it might be more a fear of centralization, right, Josh?
Yeah.
If people are really interested in Ethereum and in like staking the coins, they get more coins the more they stake. The top 10 start to become the top 5, the top 3, just like the media companies just did in the American markets, merging and merging and merging till they get control of it. And then they change the rules of Ethereum somehow, ... And then they get more money.
But they're not gonna I suppose they're not gonna change, they're not gonna make a change that would, shit on their own doorstep, right? If you've got if you've got such a mass of a coin and
they could change the name to X. It's always possible.
Indeed, from bird poop to general poop. But yeah, I don't know. I obviously see that there's proof of work. I do think superior for a number of reasons, but I don't think proof of stake is really that bad because of the game theory of own. You're not going to shit on your own doorstep. You're not going to make decisions that will destroy your own investment, especially when you own such a huge amount. So I kind of, I'm not on the fence with how I'm not on the fence with how proof of work is better than proof of stake because it's very clear. But I'm on the fence of how bad proof of stake actually is. But it is being, more and more so being a stick to beat Bitcoin with because of the environmental issues and blah blah blah. But even that's being countered now by all far more reports outnumbering the outweighing in terms of analytics as well. The shady reports that are going into Bitcoin uses more electricity than the entire solar system and all that. And if we continue at this trajectory, then we'll use more electricity than the known universe within 6 months. And all these crazy world-ending theories. But why not? If Bitcoin's getting an ETF, then why isn't Ethereum going to get one? And as Josh said, I can't wait. It's going to happen. Come on, Dogecoin. There will be a Dogecoin ETF. There's going to be a Litecoin one. There's likely there'll be a Litecoin one. Sad times. Hate to say it. There'll probably be a Bitcoin Cash one eventually. These things will all happen. As much as everyone will hate it, but that's that's free and open markets, right? That's what we're sort of here for. So as much as people may hate the fact that Ethereum may have an ETF, and it's not guaranteed, right? It's only BlackRock have made steps towards an ETF. It's going to happen. It's inevitable.
I just want to add to your point there, Dan, with proof of stake. I think about it a lot, way too much that I should really. But one of the arguments against the Lightning Network was centralization. I don't know. One of the arguments was centralization of the Lightning Network, which is ludicrous because the Lightning Network is software. So it's very, very easy to, when it's not like building trenches and laying cables and then going, oh, there's a bad actor. Oh, we can't do anything because it's hardware laid cables. It's very easy just to go, oh, we're going to take that node off and route around that bad actor. And it's very, in a similar way, proof of work is hardware. There's a lot of hardware in massive things. It's very, very hard if there's a bad actor to route, to basically take that offline. Like when I say bad actor, like a bad country that wants to take over or ban something, it's very hard to dismantle all that and everything else. With proof of stake, it's quite easy because there's not that much hardware. It's more software based, and so things are a little bit more fluid if there are bad actors. On the other hand, like I said, I like to have contradictory arguments within in one sentence. On the other hand, you have problems where people, companies like large exchanges, which there are many of, by the way, nowadays, hold large pools. And if they become a bad actor, it's very, very hard to take your Bitcoin or your Ethereum out of that pool and move it somewhere else if they choose not to, because they're now a custodian. So, so you know, it's
Well, and
weighing up
Josh,
these
what
two
do you
things.
think about the argument that I've made several times here, that the interesting rollout of Ethereum, where first it was proof of work and it went out to a lot of people and it was mined, and now it's held by many people, and then it switched to proof of stake. Are we on just a really long tail where all of the Ethereum is eventually attracted, like we're thinking, to these top 5, top 10 wallets? Is it just going to take longer and still have the same effect? Is that still the real problem with proof of stake, that if these wallets conglomerated, if they got large voting power, they could change the software, right?
Well, you could say the same for proof of work, because will the big miners, will the big pools all attract all the Bitcoin, and then two pools will become more because it's more profitable or it's more manageable and more predictable to have your money in a large pool. So the same argument goes for proof of work a little bit, but I don't know. I'm just not sure. And this is what's so beautiful about this space. It's all experimental. And these people that come out and say, this is the truth, they're lying to you. You should be a bit hedged. You should be careful of people that say, this is the only oracle, this is the only truth. This is why. So when we split between big blocks and small blocks, this is why Satoshi's answer to the fork is so beautiful, or having a fork is so beautiful, because you get a coin on each chain. If you had a coin before on one, you get on both, because we don't know. Maybe one is better than the other, maybe not. Maybe big blocks are good. I don't think they are, personally. I think small blocks are the way to go, and building L2s is the way to go. But this is the thing. Don't trust people that have such strong opinions that they cut out everything else. And maybe they make good arguments, but I would always keep an open mind, is what I'm saying.
It's a funny one, because it's like what's decentralized enough. Like we would say that proof of work is probably more decentralized than proof of stake, but the reality is, like, we don't know how decentralized things need to be until we have big attack scenarios. So like you say with the big blocks, if we were proof of stake, then Roger Ver would have won that argument and the users wouldn't, because the majority of people who would have had the coins would have been the ones who made the decision ultimately. And then at that point, we wouldn't have been decentralized enough to defend against it. So it's like proof of work, I struggle with it, because obviously, yeah, it does consumes a lot of energy, and proof of stake doesn't. But I think we need it as decentralized as possible, and I really think the proof of work is probably the answer there. But maybe for Ethereum and the way that rolls, proof of stake's fine, and cool.
It's a lot simpler as well, proof of work. So there's less attack surface, and that's, I think, super important for something like as fundamental as Bitcoin. It needs to stay.
Yeah, we haven't been attacked yet. Like, we fly under the radar. People generally like these things, so they don't attack them enough. But when the big attacks come in, then that's when we'll see, which is what we, how decentralized we need to be.
Because one of the issues with proof of stake is that the attack vector can be very discrete, because you could have 100 wallets that have most of the supply, but they're just not, they're different addresses, right? They're still staking. So right. No one would know that with a mining pool, that that slush pool's got X%, for example, of the mining power. And obviously the nodes come into it as well. But with staking, you could easily have, a huge, much more of a significant supply of the coin, but people wouldn't make the link to know that you actually have 70% of the coin supply that's in your voting power, rather than only 20%. And the same, going back on the same argument with Bitcoin, right? With proof of work, it's not just about miners. Nodes also stop attacks. But couldn't you just carbon copy, that was from the Nodal wrap, Um, but can you also just carbon copy in a bunch of VPSs that set your own nodes up that also flood the market with nodes that vote in your favor? Is that an attack vector? That's got to be one, right? If nodes also have,
I think you'd have to pay for the node, so it would be more
yeah, of
cost.
course. But if you're paying, it's the same
Output,
as you pay for
possible.
mining power to attack, right? So it's still a possibility. You could pay, you could be, I don't know, a rogue Amazon. You could literally like take over with a freaking sword and an axe and like take over an Amazon warehouse of servers and be like, oh, and point them all, like make 1 trillion VPSs that all like carbon copy. They're all, and then suddenly you become the node master, because that's
The
technically
node
possible, right?
master.
Although it may be you may not have an axe or a sword.
Maybe that would be easier on proof of stake. But yes, I was just reading in the Hitchhiker's Guide about a television show that was so successful, more people watched it than existed at that time. I wonder if the ETFs will be the same way. Ben Ark, who's getting an ETF even if they don't deserve it? Name your favorite altcoin other than Bitcoin and Ethereum that just might get their own ETF.
Ooh, Monero.
Monero, Josh Shigala, you going to go the same way? Privacy coins? Of course, it kind of destroys the whole purpose of a privacy coin if you have some large organization holding all of your coin and then they can't be used for privacy and they just sit there. But
I don't know. I mean, I think it could, in the end, it could be any coin, really. I mean, it's you know, ETFs are basically companies that buy certain assets and you invest in that company. So it could be anything.
I like it. Any coin, as she said to me in Malta, it's called fast coin because it's fast.
One coin.
Dan Eve, who's getting an ETF? And you did already say Dogecoin, but you could say Dogecoin again.
I did. No, I'm going to be completely messed up here. And I think that enough time is going to pass that one day there will actually be an FTT ETF. I think it's going to get bought out. Something's going to happen with it. It will get bought out and some crap will happen. And then years down the line, everyone will forget and there'll be an FTT ETF. And Sam will be sat there in his jail cell, spanking off to his courtroom picture of Caroline. Sorry, I just keep thinking of that funny little meme. I think it was Beeple. Do you see it? It's like first person view.
People's been pretty hardcore lately about Sam in prison.
I think you sent it to us, Dan. It was horrid.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones I was sat in a very public place and I was like scrolling through my phone and I looked and I thought, what's this? And then I realized where I was. I went, oh shit.
I think that's what Elon Musk said on Joe Rogan. He's like, it's not that safe to follow people anymore. He's starting to put crazy stuff up. But again, I love it. I think People's been fantastic. But yeah, it was an incredible satire. All right, I think we're going to move on to issue 4. Issue 4. Whatever happened to NFTs? NFTs were featured on The Simpsons, maybe one of the greatest shows of all time. The entire first segment of the Treehouse of Horror was about Bart Simpson being transformed into an NFT, trapped on the blockchain, and then rescued and saved by Marge. It was an incredible 15 minutes or so about NFTs. The price even started to rebound the next day with several very expensive crypto punks selling for millions of dollars. Josh Shigala, it's just like Bitcoin and Ethereum and everything else. NFTs are dead. We will never hear from them again. Meanwhile, pop culture like The Simpsons just can't stop talking about them, almost as if they're going to have a comeback. What do you think?
Yeah, I think NFTs need to start being broken down into the sub genres of NFTs, because NFT fundamentally is technology that allows you to trace one token through the network. And we used to laugh at artists saying we should put art on the blockchain. Yeah. But now they do, and they have, and it brought in a massive wave of people. Some would say would created the 2021 boom, but I would say that was just money printing that created that. But anyway, yeah, it needs those different genres because I think things come in cycles, and those cycles aren't going anywhere. The genie is out of the bottle. You can now fingerprint a piece of artwork and put that hash on the chain and link to it. You can now, even on Bitcoin, actually inscribe the actual image into the blockchain, so it's not just a link. You can do a whole lot of things. So I'm just looking forward to some of the other stuff that actually comes out. Like, I really, really want to see the thing that about 50 million startups have tried to do, and that's put ticketing services on chain, so I can like buy a ticket to a concert, and then if I can't make it, I can sell it legitimately, and the actual artist gets a cut of the secondary markets. There's all these reasons you can have NFTs, and they're not being used yet, and I wonder why. And it's a little bit sad, like locks on doors. You know, being able to send the key to an Airbnb person to say, here's the key for today, and the key I don't know, like there's so many cases for NFTs. The dynamic NFTs we've made on the standard.io, there's so many cool things. So let's see. I think the Simpsons, it's great to see pop culture like the Simpsons, and obviously South Park, when they did theirs, really do such cool work, such fun ways of representing and sort of taking the piss out of ourselves as well, which is great. But yeah, they're coming back. Art on the blockchain is not going anywhere.
I agree, Josh. I think they should separate tickets and other things from collectibles. But then it's interesting to see how at the end the ticket becomes a collectible again, how it can be used for entry, but then at the same time, someone might be collecting those just because they couldn't go, but they could still get a stub. And one of the things we always talked about when we were making curio cards, when we were talking about NFTs, is basically we're talking about the ability of you to make a unique digital item. And that's been true with Bitcoin and everything else. And then it was true with NFTs. And it doesn't mean that item will be incredibly valuable, especially if that item's a one of one and only one person wants it. You need to get more interest in that in the market. What's fascinating and unique about curio cards that may lead to their success later on, if they are eventually rediscovered by the larger market, is that curio cards are actually fungible. You could trade a number one, an apple, for any other number one that's an apple. There's no way of knowing that this was the first apple out of the vending machine or the last, because they're not serialized in that way. Whereas many other NFTs are serialized. So even if it is a series of prints, people might want the number one print more than the other prints. And the same way, if you have a profile picture and yours is the unpopular crypto ape or whatever, it might not sell. There might not be a market for it. But it's interesting, with a more fungible NFT, it's easier to find a market. And again, I still think with the same thing as altcoins, like the top 5 altcoins stick around, the top 5 NFTs stick around. Historically, curio cards, Rare Pepe, Spells of Genesis, Crypto Punks, Crypto Kitties, Mooncats. It could be just like Bitcoin and Ethereum and everything else, where it goes quiet for a long time. We see all these companies adopting it, all these companies saying, hey, we could make digital collectibles too. And that was always the point. It was never the point that you can't make them. It was always many people, everyone can make them. And we're starting to get there. And that could mean value to some. Dan, Eve, what do you think about NFTs? And of course, The Simpsons, who also had Futurama covering Bitcoin in the Hulu remake, and have mentioned it before.
They're pointing, the articles are good at pointing out that the market, the volume's down to 1/10 of what it was in peak, but then that's happened in many of the altcoin and even Bitcoin, early Bitcoin cycles. So obviously Bitcoin's a different kettle of fish, but it happened early in the other cryptocurrency cycles. And let's face it, like Litecoin's been around now for 10 years. It's only 4 years less than Bitcoin, right? So these things are, as love them or hate them, they're around to stay. But to say that the market's like kind of dead is just crazy. I mean, Bugatti recently announced they're creating NFTs, American Express, and with the US Open. Like, so you're seeing multi-billion-dollar and million-dollar companies, and Bugatti's a million or billion. I think the amount is probably just millions. But anyway, but American Express, that's a huge company. They're making NFTs, and what's cool about this is that these companies are much faster to go into creating NFTs and seeing the value of NFTs than they are of accepting Bitcoin. Obviously, there's a lot of other different kind of geopolitical reasons for that, but there is a clear, from a business perspective, a clear utility point for having NFTs, the abilities we said about like events and things like that. And as Josh Gate, listed off a number of different ideas that you can use NFTs for. So that it really shows that these things aren't just redundant. They're not just pieces of art that just are created out of thin air. I mean, obviously, loads of them are these carbon copy. Here's the penguins with different funny hats. Look, all these shitty penguins with funny hats. The funny hat penguin crew. Oh, so good. No offense to anyone who's got a shitty funny hat penguin collectible, which is TM trademark. But yeah, there are a lot of companies that are actually using them for utility and loyalty cards and things like that. What also said this article specifically though, they missed. I'm sure they missed out on a trick here. They said fueled by celebrity buyers, including talk show host Jimmy Fallon and Paris Hilton. And the one thing they missed out there is that a bunch of these celebrities, and I'm pretty sure it was at least one of those two, was given them in an undisclosed ad deal, allegedly. And so they should have actually declared it that they basically didn't buy it. They were given it as a shilling thing. So naughty to kind of carry the shill like that. But yeah, they're not dead at all. It's just a low in the market. It's going to come back again. Love them or hate them. That they are here to stay, just like altcoins are, unfortunately for some. Come on, they're not that bad. They're not Bitcoin, so who cares? Bitcoin's Bitcoin. But just stop. Whenever you're writing an article, stop referring to it as Bitcoin, the largest cryptocurrency by market cap. Just go Bitcoin. Just say Bitcoin. Ta-da.
Oh, but I think that it does that automatically. It's like a macro on their machines.
Autocorrect.
Autocorrect. But yeah, Dan, that's one of the things we always used to talk about with NFTs is how great they would be for advertising. You can print them up for almost nothing. You can give them out for your fans for free, or even get them to give you an email address or other valuable information in order to get them. And then they even go beyond that, because after that, they sit in your customers' wallets. You could do a survey. What NFTs do our customers also buy? You could drop additional NFTs on them in the future. You could even give a multiplier if you have 10 of our NFTs. Like, the idea is just go on and on and on. And it's all advertising, and it's all really cheap. And you get a lot of biographical information and data. It almost is like a tracking bug that you're sending to someone's wallet that then reports back, in the same way that we installed all these Alexa devices in our houses. We installed all these tracking bugs in our wallet. The minute you accept the Chester Cheetah NFT, Cheetos knows everything about you. Let's go to Ben Arker. He disappeared. He just had to talk about NFTs and he disappeared. Josh Shigala, what do you think about NFTs?
He evaporated.
And advertising.
What was the question?
NFTs for tracking and advertising. What do you think about the possibility?
Oh, right. Yeah. No, absolutely. This is actually a fundamental problem with the Ethereum MetaMask wallets not using UTXO bases. I don't know. Let's see if someone can fix it. Let's see if someone can fix it, because it's actually very dangerous. I've said it before. If you walk into a shop and you buy your carton of milk with your US, some sort of stable coin, and the shop owner in the dodgy country can see that you've got, $20,000 NFT there, he'll just go and rob you for it. It's
it is very interesting, Josh. At one point, you want them to be visible because you want to brag about your art gallery or your binder of baseball cards. But at the other point, like everything else in our lives, it needs to be version controlled. You need to have that access where you're like, okay, you're a friend, you can see these. You're a stranger, you can't see these. You're a stranger that I want to sell these to, you can see them. There's a variety of different rules that need to be put on this if we're going to have a more complex, secure NFT environment.
Yeah, I mean, Facebook went through it, right? Originally, Facebook just showed everything to everyone all the time, and then more people realized the consequences of that, and then would pressure Facebook to put these sorts of version controls in, and now it's too late. People just don't like Facebook at all anymore. But social networks in general have learned over the years that users actually want control of their data.
Well, it's strange to see, even with a simple device like the Amazon clock that shows you photos, sometimes it shows you the wrong photos. Sometimes there's someone who has a lot of photos in your book, but you broke up with them or they passed away, or you don't want to see those photos. And there's these really complex human rules that they have to
Yeah.
learn. You can't just randomly show photos all the time. You might offend someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's go to Dan Eve. What do you think about NFTs? Or actually, Ben Ark, we were disconnected before. Your opinion on NFTs have been withheld from the internet. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had to switch to phone because my laptop died. No, I think the .com is like the ultimate example of lots of people being excited. The .com bubble, lots of people being excited by new technology, and then all these stupid projects flying around and all this liquidity flying around, and these crazy valuations for things which are utterly useless. And I think time and time again, we see that happening in the digital world, and we've seen it with NFTs. It's just crap art. Like, yes, there is definitely a use case here, of course, but it probably needs to like be good art at some point, and not just for the sake of the very fact that something is non-fungible and you can exchange on the internet. It's interesting because actually, like, where all this stuff began, like with the cypherpunks with Hal Finney. So Hal Finney worked for Mattel, and in 1982 he designed and built the game The Adventures of Tron. And in that, Tron has to navigate through a digital world, past enemies and collect collectibles. And then you can imagine Hal Finney thinking, well, why would those collectibles have any value in this digital world where everything can be copied? And I'm pretty sure that a lot of where we are now is from that thought process of him having to kind of imagine like Tron in that world, and why would these things not be reproduced? Why couldn't you just copy and make more of them, as you could always do in the digital world? So it wasn't until Bitcoin that we actually had something which was scarce, like digitally scarce, which is an incredible thing when you think that everything in our real world is scarce in one degree or another, and that's what gives it value. So yeah, no, like looking at the .com bubble, I think it's just you always see like the same thing repeating, the same process repeating itself, and there will be some great projects which emerge from this NFT world, but in the immediate term, it was just loads of crazy money and people making loads of money off crap. But there's definitely value there. Like, think about like in-game items, like people who spend large amounts of time earning items on some multi-player role-playing game on the internet or something, and then the game designers just suddenly decide to make more of that item, and it sucks. Like, it sucks for the game players. So it'd be nice if there was some way where its scarcity could be pre-predicted, and they could then trade them on an open market outside of the game. So yeah, there's a bunch of use cases for NFTs which are very exciting, and I hope to see more of them explored. But that current iteration was just people being excited about the technology and pumping money into a bunch of crap.
Well, it will be interesting to see if it comes back. As we've seen before with Bitcoin and other technologies, they go through this cycle. Everyone says that it's crap and worthless, and then they say, well, maybe there was 2 or 3 projects that were good out of all that. I think we're going to move on to predictions or story of the week. Josh Shigala, are you ready with a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
Yeah. So my story of the week is we had unfortunately an exploit on the standard.io, which wasn't actually a code thing. Our code's solid here, but somebody put 10 Bitcoin into the standard, borrowed a bunch of EURUS, and then we have this new function where you can trade and you could trade over to Pax Gold. And on Arbitrum, there's no liquidity on Pax Gold. So what they did is they basically created a liquidity pool with Pax Gold, or maybe there was one, it was really small. And then they generated all this EUROS. They then traded that over to the Pax Gold. So they siphoned their own Bitcoin out into the liquidity pool because they own that pool. So now they own the Bitcoin again outside of the standard. And then they dumped the EUROS onto the market and took the liquidity. Good thing is we patched it straight away. We managed to get in contact with the hacker through encrypted messaging and on chain, and he returned some of the funds. Yes, there was a large amount of liquidity that he kept, which is unfortunate, and there's nothing we can do about it. But we're back up. The market is back up, and yeah, it's crazy. We repegged to the euro, which is great, and now we're just onward and upward, and trying to figure out. Obviously we patched it. There's a technological patch, and I'd like to thank Chainlink and Gamma Protocol and a whole bunch of people that came to the rescue with us and helped us through this. They really were, the community really came together, and it's amazing to see how quickly we can all come together in the face of adversity. So yeah, thanks to everyone out there, and now we're actually better than ever. More people know about us now. It's kind of had this weird, strange effect where more people know about us and more people helped us to get out of this rut. So yeah, it was a very, very stressful and tough week, but we made it, and it's only upward from here.
It sounds like an okay outcome, Josh. It's not about if you get knocked down, it's about if you get back up. Dan, Eve, prediction or story of the week? Go ahead.
Well, I'm not sure that my story of the week is going to beat Josh's everyone coming together after pegging. Sorry. But I have got something. All right, so everyone, it's a bit of a difficult time for me after what happened last time. But you see, I was walking out my house the other day. I'm short of breath now. I was walking out my house the other day, and what did I find? I found a fucking pigeon that needed some help. And so this is Larry, and he's a bit wobbly on his feet, and he's been eating bread, got wholemeal bread. It was on my door. I swear to God, it was on. He was on my door. He probably, I don't know. I can't check. He identifies as he. He was on my doorstep as I was walking out the house to the gym. I was like, "Oh fuck, it's a pigeon! Like, what am I going to do?" And he couldn't move, and he was like walking along and had an injured wing. I thought, in memory of Barry, I was like, "Oh, do I skip the gym class?" And the thought crossed my mind, and I thought, I can't leave Larry here. I know, like, cats live all around the place. Probably a cat that did it, and so Larry's been with me for the last couple of days. I think he's doing okay. I think he is. It's pretty cold out there, so he's moved into the house, and he's been eating loads of bread. Absolutely loves it. Won't let me feed it to him. He's still a bit sketchy. But yeah, so I'm now the pigeon whisperer.
Dan, the hero of pigeons. Incredible. Let's go to Ben Ark, prediction or story of the week. Go ahead.
I haven't really got anything to top these great stories, man. Like, Josh, I feel for you. It's hard. You did everything in the world you could to audit it, but it's not until these things are out in the real wild. And it's the level of competence in some of these people who hack our systems, man. Yeah, we've had some in Ellen Bits, and some of the exploits they'll find, like, it's so small and niche, and they get in there, and you could do all the auditing in the world, but it's not until you're actually running something out in the wild that you get that hardening. So it's cool that you've had that happen, and you've hardened, and the standard IO is better for it, which it must have been a crazy week for you there, but not as crazy as Dan's week with the pigeon. I don't think I've got anything to beat it. Prediction. No, nothing. I've got nothing. I'm empty.
You did just go to Asia, right? For the
Oh,
Nostr Asia conference.
yeah. I came back from
And
Nostr Asia in Japan, in Tokyo. That was cool. That was a Nostr conference, and a lot of great speakers and a lot of great projects. And yeah, Nostr is being used a lot in Japan, which is cool. I was I demoed IoT over Nostr, which is so there's a World Crypto Network connection here. So the first video I ever did on World Crypto Network was BTC IoT, and the idea was at the beginning there's a little video by Andreas Antonopoulos, a little segment I pulled from another podcast, and in it he's talking about an IoT future which is controlled by the users as opposed to being controlled by the companies. And with Nostr now, I can have a client and then I can direct message a light bulb and tell it to turn on, or my heater and tell it to turn up, or my solar panel batteries, and ask what the readout is and how full they are. And it means that I don't have to like sign up for these horrible Orwellian terms and conditions you get in IT devices. And it means that like with Home Assistant and like the free and open source IoT stuff you can do now, you need to create open up ports and use WireGuard in order to run software and on ClearNet and blah blah blah. Whereas with Nostr, you can just have these clients locally, and then we can just DM each other, and as long as they can connect to that relay, like we can just share information through that relay. So yeah, that was the thing which I was like unveiling, which Black Coffee, who works in LM Bits, that's one of the things he'd been working on, and it was super exciting. Like I turned on a lamp with my Nostr IoT application client, and it's just like a simple, like literally just a web page, and has a WebSocket to a relay, and I'm turning a thing on, and yeah, it's turning on. So that was great, and there was also that, and I mentioned World Crypto Network in my talk for that reason, because of the BTC IoT thing. So that was cool. Yeah, I forgot about that.
See, you had lots to say after all.
I was going to say one more thing, because Josh wasn't here. Was it last week? So I used the standard, by the way, Josh, and it was amazing. Really, so really good app. Just literally, like, forget about having to sell crypto. Just lock it up and then take a loan out against it. It's amazing. If only we had that in like 2013.
We'd all be richer for it.
Oh God,
we'd all
yeah,
be richer
crazy.
for it. Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's absolutely amazing, and like
Thank you.
I think 10 minutes flat, like end to end, and that was with fiddling around with like hardware wallets and the usual like cables not working and stuff like that. So no, absolutely amazing. Yeah, really,
Thank
really
you.
good
Thank
app.
you very much.
Cool.
Yeah, cheers.
Well, very cool. I don't have much of a story this week, but I was one of the last people, I think, to see Oppenheimer. They had a re-release into IMAX this week, so I went to see it in the IMAX. It was indeed 3 hours long. You could almost watch each hour as a separate movie, but it's a great movie about a complicated man and a complicated time in American history. It was very thoughtful, doesn't exactly lay conclusions, and has a great style to it, great structure, very much like Oliver Stone's great films, all of JFK or Nixon, that same kind of historical fiction, but presented through a movie. So it's great to see.
I want to know why when that came out, people were like, Barbie or Oppo, like they were comparing those two movies. It was the weirdest thing. I was like, what do you mean? Why are you even comparing these two things?
There was even a thing where people would watch them back to back, even going movie theater to movie theater, and they're just so profoundly different. I very much enjoyed the Barbie movie. I think it's very strong as a movie, but Oppenheimer is just so heavy. You feel so thick out of you go after there. You have to really, if you're watching the film, if you're understanding the film, you go home and you think about what happened and the choices he had to make and the situation and this side and that side, and it's just a powerful film. Barbie also powerful, but not in the existential nuclear war destruction of our world kind
how
of.
can
For some
Barbie be
people,
powerful?
it is though, right?
What?
They're like
Breaking my head.
Well, but in the Barbie and Ken broke up. I mean, I don't know. A lot of things happen. They get back together. I don't know, do spoilers for the Barbie movie about the end, but No, it's a great, it's two good movies, and they just came out at the same time. Also, I want to kind of celebrate them for not being, although Barbie was, it's a product, but Oppenheimer, not a comic book movie. Iron Man was in there, but he didn't have any powers. Huey from The Boys was in there. There's a lot of great actors in there, all practicing their craft without comic books as a source material. So that was nice too.
Oh, thank
So
God.
I did read that
the
the sale of Barbies went up tenfold after the movie. What about the sale of atomic bombs? No one reported on that.
It's got to go up. I mean, it was talked about in detail. Everyone knows now. The secret is out. But I think we're going to reach the end of the show here. So thanks to everybody for joining us. Give us a thumbs up. Write a comment down below. Say hello in the chat. It's been really quiet over there. I don't know if it's working or not. Josh made fireworks appear somehow. I don't know how you did that, Josh, but he's got the gestures turned on in Zoom or something. But until next time, bye.